Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Catholic Home and Travel. Today, we are talking about travel. In my previous videos, we've seen the beautiful Catholic sites in Spain, France, and Italy, three countries that, historically, have deep Catholic roots. Today, we are traveling to a country that is not only culturally Catholic, but where the majority is still practicing the faith. In fact, according to the CatholicTravelGuide.com, it can arguably be said that this country is the most Catholic of all European countries. Who are we talking about? For those of you who guessed Poland, you are correct. Their deep Catholic heritage means that there are several incredible Catholic pilgrimage sites to visit here. So let's get started. And please excuse my poor pronunciation of many of these Polish cities. I promise I will do my best. Let's assume you begin your journey by flying into Warsaw, which is probably the easiest airport to fly into. While there are certainly excellent points of interest in Warsaw, which we'll get to, let's begin our Catholic pilgrimage by driving north to visit Cheshova, known as the Lourdes of Poland. Although not as well known as Lourdes, you should know that the sanctuary of Our Lady of Cheshova is a major pilgrimage destination in Poland, as it's the site of the only approved Marian apparition in Poland. It was in 1877, not long after the apparitions of Our Lady in Lourdes and La Salette, that Mary appeared to two young teenage girls above a maple tree near their church. She appeared several times over the course of nearly 3 months and always gave the same message: pray the rosary every day. And at the very end of her apparition, she said, pray the rosary zealously. Mary also directed them to a nearby spring that she had blessed for healing both physical and spiritual maladies. Naturally, word spread, and several 100,000 pilgrims visited the shrine in those early years. Today, nearly 1 million pilgrims visit each year. The sanctuary includes the Basilica of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the votive chapel of St. Joseph, which was built in 1877, immediately after the apparitions, and the 19th and 20th century shrines. In 1970, Pope St. Paul VI elevated the ranking of the church to minor basilica, and in 1977, the apparitions were finally approved. When visiting, it's good to know that several masses are celebrated here each day. Our Lady of Cheshova, pray for us. Now let's head back to the beautiful city of Warsaw. Here we are going to visit a very important site for the Polish people: the Shrine of Blessed Jerzy Popiełuszko, located in St. Stanislas Kostka Church. If you haven't heard of Father Jerzy yet, now is the time to learn about this famous Polish martyr. As a priest, he frequently celebrated Mass for the striking steel workers who were involved in the Solidarity movement. He was known for giving rousing homilies, criticizing the communist government, and motivating people to protest. The communist authorities decided to assassinate him through a planned traffic accident, hoping to put down the movement. Their plan didn't work, so a few days later, on October 19, 1984, they captured him, tortured him, reportedly beat him with a rock until he died, and dumped his body in a reservoir. Nearly 1 million people attended his funeral. His martyrdom caused an uproar throughout Poland and only solidified the people's resistance. He was proclaimed a martyr by the Church and beatified in June 2010. His grave, which has been visited by millions, including Pope St. John Paul II, is located in front of St. Stanislas Kostka Church. Additionally, inside the church, you will find a multimedia museum dedicated to Father Jerzy's life. The church itself is worth visiting, and of course, you can attend Mass here. The next stop on our pilgrimage is Niepokalanów. Here you will find the Monastery of the Immaculate Conception of the Blessed Virgin Mary, also known as the City of the Immaculata, which is a Franciscan monastery founded by St. Maximilian Kolbe in 1927. But first, a little history. In 1917, St. Maximilian Kolbe and 6 other men formed a group called the Knights of the Immaculata, consecrating themselves entirely to the Virgin Mary. They did this as a response to both the evil and the anti-Catholic rhetoric that they saw and heard all around them, specifically from Freemasonry and communism. The Knights and monastery grew, and by 1937, this was the largest monastery in the world, with over 700 men. They not only had a church, but also a seminary, a printing press, a radio station, a farm, and a fire brigade. Their most famous publication is the Night of the Immaculata, which included strong criticism of the Nazis. In 1939, he and 40 other priests were arrested by the Gestapo. Although he was eventually released, he was arrested again in 1941 and was transferred to Auschwitz, where many of us know his story. Shortly after arriving there, a prisoner escaped the camp. As punishment for the whole camp, the guards selected 10 men at random to die by starvation. When one of these men despaired that he would leave his wife and children, Kolbe asked to take his place. The surprised guard consented. All 10 were thrown into a bunker, and while they slowly starved to death, the saint led the men in prayers and song. After 2 weeks, Kolbe was the only one left alive, so they gave him a lethal injection. Later, one of the Auschwitz prisoners quoted him as saying, "I am not afraid of death, I am afraid of sin." Now there are words to live by. Maximilian Kolbe was canonized a saint in 1982. Among those attending his canonization was the very man whose life he saved. When you visit Nipokalanów, you'll of course visit the Basilica of the Immaculate Conception, where you can go to Mass and confession. You can also visit the museum that is dedicated to his life and see the cell where this incredible saint lived. Let's now head west towards Liechtenstein, where we will find one of the largest churches in the world, the Basilica of Our Lady of Liechten. Built between 1994 and 2004, this gorgeous basilica is dedicated to Our Lady of Sorrows and was modeled after St. Peter's Basilica. In 2005, Pope John Paul II bestowed on it the papal title of Minor Basilica. It's probably no surprise that this is one of the most popular pilgrimage sites in Poland, visited by millions. So, how did this basilica come to be? The story goes that in 1813, when a Polish soldier in battle was seriously injured near Leipzig, Germany, he begged the Blessed Virgin Mary to not let him die on foreign soil. He says that she then appeared to him, comforted him, and told him that he would not die. She also told him to find an image of herself, saying, "My people will pray before this image and shall draw many graces at my hands in the hardest times of trial." In 1836, he eventually did find an image of our Blessed Mother on his way back from a pilgrimage, which he hung on a tree in the Grablin forest near his house. Long story short, eventually this image was placed in the parish church in Liechten, and many miracles were attributed to it, including miraculous healings from a cholera outbreak for those who knelt and prayed in front of the image. Eventually, in thanksgiving from the Polish people, this basilica was built to permanently house this image. When visiting, you will most certainly be awed by the immense scale of the church. It can house nearly 7,000 worshippers, as well as the architecture, artwork, sculptures, frescoes, and especially the miraculous painting of the Blessed Virgin Mary behind the main altar. There are many other incredible points of interest for the pilgrim here, including, but not limited to, a replica of Golgotha, the Chapel of the Holy Cross, which contains a crucifix that was shot by a Nazi educator and has an incredible story connected to it. I encourage you to read about it. And the Grablin Forest where the miraculous image was first hung. Okay, it's time to move southwest to the town of Legnica, specifically to the sanctuary of St. Hyacinth, to see another miraculous object. It was Christmas Day, 2013. During communion, the priest accidentally dropped the consecrated host on the floor. Following church procedures, the host was placed in holy water to dissolve. Several days later, although part of the host dissolved, a red substance also appeared. The bishop ordered it to be examined by 2 independent forensic medicine departments. Their findings? Human DNA and human heart tissue with alterations that are frequently seen when a person is in a state of agony. In 2016, the Vatican approved it as one more incredible Eucharistic miracle. Today, you will find the host in the reliquary available to the public for veneration. Since then, countless conversions have happened. A Christmas miracle indeed. Now it's time to head to the south of Poland, where we will visit a number of important sites. Our first stop will be Auschwitz, home to the infamous World War II concentration camp. While the majority who died at Auschwitz were Jews, there were also many other victims from different faiths, including Catholic priests, religious, and lay members. As we know, St. Maximilian Kolbe was one of them. Here you can see cell number 18, where he and 9 other prisoners died. Another famous saint who also met her fate at Auschwitz was Saint Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, also known as Saint Edith Stein. For those of you not as familiar with her, Edith Stein was a brilliant philosopher from Germany. Although she was raised Jewish, she became an atheist as a teenager, but converted to Catholicism as an adult after reading Saint Teresa of Avila's autobiography. Eventually, she became a Carmelite nun. For a while, she and her sister Rosa, who was also a convert and a nun, lived in Germany, but eventually they were sent to Belgium for their safety from the Nazis. They seemed safe here, at least for a few years. However, in 1942, after the Dutch bishops publicly condemned the deportation of Jews, in retaliation, the Nazis arrested all Jewish converts to Catholicism in the Netherlands, including Edith and Rosa. The 2 sisters were sent to Auschwitz, where they were killed in the gas chambers shortly after they arrived. Based on witness testimonies, it is said that St. Edith Stein provided comfort to many of the women and children who were on the train with her to Auschwitz. Another incredible saint. A mere 35 minutes away by car is Vadovita, the birthplace of the very popular Pope St. John Paul II. There are 2 main points of interest here. The first is a Church of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, which happens to be the oldest church in Vadovita, located in the market square. This is a church where the saint was baptized in 1920, and you can even still see the original baptistry. It's also the church of his youth. Here he served Mass and spent countless hours praying, especially in front of a portrait of Our Lady of Perpetual Help. This ultimately led to a profound and personal devotion to our Blessed Mother. In 1992, Pope John Paul II elevated the status of the church to Basilica Minor. Apart from this beautiful church, you can also visit his family home, which consisted of 2 rooms and a kitchen, as well as the John Paul II Family Home Museum that was constructed in the surrounding apartments. About 20 minutes from here is another must-see Catholic pilgrimage site. I'm referring to Kalwaria Sebradowska, known as the Polish Jerusalem, which dates back to the early 1600s. The goal of the founder was to create a replica of Jerusalem during the time of Jesus, hence the name Polish Jerusalem. Here you will find a gorgeous basilica called the Lady of Our Angels, a monastery, and a complex of chapels and churches built in the Baroque and Mannerist styles, all integrated into a beautiful, natural setting. There are also paths with various themes that connect all of these buildings. The 2 main paths include the Path of Our Lord Jesus, with statues depicting his passion and crucifixion, and the Path of Our Lady, depicting her suffering and assumption into heaven. In 1999, this sanctuary became a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's also good to know that this site is famous for their annual Passion Play, which is more of a procession that runs from Palm Sunday to Good Friday each year. Now let's head south about an hour and a half to the town of Zakopane. This is a beautiful mountain town that is worth visiting just for the natural beauty. But naturally, there is also an important pilgrimage site here that we are visiting, the Shrine of Our Lady of Fatima. This shrine has an incredible history. It all began on May 13, 1981, the anniversary of Mary's first apparition in Fatima. Pope John Paul II was shot twice in St. Peter's Square and critically injured. Hours after the assassination attempt, a Polish priest, Father Drostek, prayed fervently in front of a statue of Our Lady of Fatima, begging her to spare the Pope's life. In his prayer to Our Lady, he said, "If God would spare the life of John Paul II, we would build a church here as a votive offering for the saved life of the Holy Father." As we all know, his prayers were answered. Construction on the main church began in 1987, was completed in 1992, and was consecrated by John Paul II himself in 1997. The shrine consists of the main church of Our Lady of Fatima, built using the traditional folk architecture of this region, and the original chapel next door, which houses the very statue of Our Lady of Fatima, in front of which so many fervent prayers were said for the Pope. There is also a lovely statue of John Paul II outside, facing the beautiful mountains. The main church also contains a bell that was donated by John Paul II, and I love the fact that there is also a miraculous medal placed under each brick of the church's foundation. After visiting this unique shrine, and before continuing your journey, be sure to go to nearby Tatras National Park to see some of the most beautiful natural scenery in all of Poland, including their 5 stunning lakes. Additionally, you can do some beautiful hiking here in the summer and ski here in the winter. Now let's turn our pilgrimage north towards Krakow for our next exciting stop, the famous Velichka salt mine, an underground city with 9 levels and over 1,000 feet deep. Here you will find underground lakes, nearly 2,500 chambers, 4 chapels, and numerous statues carved completely out of salt by Catholic miners. This salt mine, one of the oldest in the world, began in the 13th century and has quite the extensive history. Here are just some of the highlights. Tourists actually began visiting the mine at the end of the 15th century, including the famous astronomer Copernicus. The oldest chapel, known as the St. Anthony Chapel, was created between 1690 and 1710. The largest chapel, in fact the largest underground church in the world, is the Chapel of St. Kinga, which is roughly 177 feet by 59 feet, which is remarkable when you consider that this is roughly 300 feet underground. Not surprisingly, you will also find a statue of John Paul II in St. Kinga Chapel. Many events are held here regularly, including concerts, weddings, and of course, Mass is celebrated each Sunday at St. Kinga's Chapel. Okay, now let's head into Krakow, where we will visit not 1, not 2, but 4 incredible pilgrimage sites. First, let's head to the Have No Fear John Paul II Center, which was founded in June 1995. The founding decree of the center is to commemorate the great legacy and pontificate of Pope St. John Paul II, so that his example and word are passed on to future generations. The name of the center is taken from JP2's famous words during his inauguration speech in 1978. Have no fear. Open wide the door for Jesus Christ. The main point of interest is the lower church, known as the Chapel of the Relics. This octagonal shrine, located in the basement, contains numerous pictures of the Pope, particularly of his visits to the world's most famous Marian shrines. As the chapel's name suggests, you can also see relics from the saint here, including a vial of his blood, which is contained inside a simple marble altar. In the upper church, where you can attend Mass daily, you can also view the blood-stained cassock he was wearing during the 1981 assassination attempt. In the priest chapel, you will find the slab from the first tomb where JP2 was buried in the Vatican grottos. On the slab is a reliquary in the form of an open gospel book, in remembrance of the pages that were turned by the wind during his funeral. In addition, there is a museum which displays his personal belongings and gifts that he received during his pontificate. There is also an observation tower with panoramic views of the surrounding area. The second stop in Krakow, approximately 1 mile from the JP2 Center, is one of the most popular destinations in all of Poland for Catholic pilgrims, the Shrine of Divine Mercy. This shrine was built on the site of the convent of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy, the very convent where St. Faustina lived and where Jesus gave her the message of his divine mercy. Today, the shrine consists of the Chapel of St. Joseph, which is home to the famous Divine Mercy image, and just below the image, the remains of St. Faustina. The main Basilica, where the Divine Mercy Chaplet is prayed every day at 3 p.m. during the Hour of Mercy. The convent cemetery, and a viewing tower. Each year on Divine Mercy Sunday, over 20,000 pilgrims come to worship here from all over the world. A mere 10-minute drive from the Shrine of Divine Mercy is our next pilgrimage destination, the magnificent Vavvel Castle and Cathedral. This magnificent castle, whose first foundation was laid in the 10th century, was the residence for the kings and queens of Poland from the 11th through the 16th century and served as the cultural, political, and artistic center of Poland. Today, it houses one of the country's premier art museums. Be sure to spend some time walking around the lovely grounds, including the Royal Gardens, which are typically open April through September. Now let's turn our attention to the cathedral. Construction for the cathedral began around the year 1000. Polish kings were coronated and buried here. JP2 said his first Mass here after his priestly ordination. Today's cathedral, which is the third construction in its history, is a Renaissance-style shrine and is considered one of the most beautiful examples of Italian Renaissance architecture outside of Italy. This impressive cathedral has a triple-aisled basilica, 19 chapels, numerous towers, a labyrinth of crypts, and 2 museums. Vavvel Cathedral also contains the tomb of St. Stanislaus, the former Bishop of Krakow and the patron saint of Poland. Our last stop in Krakow will be the Church of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary, commonly referred to as the Church of St. Mary or St. Mary's Basilica, located next to the main market square. And what a basilica it is! Don't be fooled by its rather understated brick exterior. It's the interior that will make your jaw drop. This church houses what is believed to be the world's largest high Gothic altarpiece, known as the Altar of the Dormition of the Mother of God, and depicts various biblical scenes. It was carved by one of Europe's greatest sculptors, Veit Stoss, in the late 15th century. Just looking at it, you can see why it's still considered to be one of the greatest late Gothic European masterpieces of all time. The entire interior is simply spectacular. This church also has a very interesting and important history. Originally, the church was built in the early 13th century. However, in 1241, the Mongols invaded Poland. As they were getting ready to invade Krakow, legend states that the town's trumpeter began sounding an alarm to alert the city to the attack. But before he could finish sounding the alarm, the Mongols shot him in the throat. Today, centuries later, the Poles have not forgotten that day. To commemorate the attack, every hour on the hour, a trumpet signal is played from the top of St. Mary's tallest tower and is suddenly cut off before finishing. In addition, the noontime signal is broadcast live by the Polish national radio station so that it can be heard across Poland. Wow! Fortunately, they rebuilt this Gothic church in the 14th century, and that is what you can visit today. While visiting, it's good to know that you can also attend Mass here on weekdays and, of course, on Sundays. We have now arrived at our last pilgrimage stop in Poland. Some might say that I've saved the best for last, but that is for you to decide. We have arrived at Jasna Gora Monastery to see Our Lady of Cheshova, also known as the Black Madonna. For those of you not familiar with the Black Madonna, this famous icon truly has an incredible history that is based on fact and folklore. First, legend states that it was painted by Saint Luke the Evangelist on a tabletop used by the Holy Family in Nazareth. It is believed that Saint Helena, the mother of Constantine, found the image in Jerusalem when she went searching for the true cross. She brought it back to Constantinople, where it remained for 500 years in a shrine that Constantine built to house it. Many miracles were attributed to it by the faithful who prayed in front of it while it remained in the shrine, including attacks on the city throughout the centuries. In the year 803, the Byzantine emperor gifted it to a Greek princess marrying a Ruthenian nobleman. They took the painting to Kiev and installed it in the royal palace of Belz. In 1382, during an invasion, the image was hit with an arrow, leaving a scar on her neck. Prince Ladislaus, who is now Saint Ladislaus, decided to move it to one of his higher castles. However, something very strange happened on his journey. As he was passing by the town of Cheshova, it is said that his horses stopped and refused to keep going. It became obvious to him that this was to be the icon's new home. He found a group of Pauline monks and donated the image to them. The prince helped to build a monastery and church to keep the icon safe. All was well until 1430, when the Hussites invaded the country and burned and looted everything in sight. When a soldier attempted to destroy the image of Our Lady, he struck the painting with his sword, which left 2 gashes on her right cheek, which you can still see to this day. When he tried to strike it a third time, he fell to the ground and died. Interestingly, over the years, when artists have tried to repair the damage, the scars continued to reappear. In 1656, a year after a failed invasion by Sweden, the King of Poland declared Our Lady of Cheshova to be the Queen of Poland and became a symbol of protection. Many, many more miracles and spontaneous healings have been attributed to this image, which you will learn more about when you visit. May 3rd is the feast day of Our Lady of Cheshova. It is believed that her skin tone is black because of the soot residue from the countless votive candles burning in front of the icon over the centuries, although different theories abound. Not surprisingly, the monastery of Yasna Gora is one of the most popular Catholic pilgrimage sites in the world. It is still an active monastery with over 100 monks living here. You can attend Mass here, and it's good to know that there is a church-operated hotel right behind the Basilica where you can stay. From here, you are a mere 2 hours from Warsaw, where you can catch a flight home. I hope you enjoyed this Catholic tour of Poland as much as I did. As always, I pray that this video inspires you to embark on your own Catholic pilgrimages. May the Lord bless you and keep you.